Joe Flacco didn't just leave Cleveland, he was pushed. And in his place steps Shedeur Sanders, not because the coaches were ready, but because ownership made the call. The Browns' decision to trade Flacco to division rival Cincinnati stunned veterans, ignited social media, and left analysts questioning who's actually running the team. It wasn't about playbooks or potential. It was about power. And it exposed a rift at the heart of Cleveland's football operation, one where Jimmy Haslam's voice now drowns out the coaching staff entirely.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
This isn't just a quarterback swap. It's a full-blown identity crisis. The move signals a fundamental shift in Cleveland's structure, where traditional football hierarchies are giving way to ownership-driven decisions shaped by media narratives and fan demands. With Sanders now in the spotlight and Flacco taking his insider knowledge to a division rival, the Browns are betting big on potential over stability. The video dissects this seismic power shift, showing how leadership fractures, coaching turmoil, and long-term risks are now baked into every snap Sanders takes. This isn't just about who plays quarterback. It's about who controls the future of the franchise. Joe Flacco is out. Shedeur Sanders is in. And the Cleveland Browns just ignited one of the most chaotic quarterback transitions the NFL's seen in years, not because of the arm talent on the field, but because of the power struggle off of it. On paper, this trade looks simple. Flacco, the aging vet, gets shipped to division rival Cincinnati for minimal draft compensation. A quiet exit, right? Not even close. This move is the tip of a much deeper iceberg, one that's been building behind the scenes for weeks and just cracked the foundation of Cleveland's football operations wide open. This wasn't a strategic football decision. This was ownership pulling rank. Joe Flacco didn't just lose his starting job, he got exiled. And the message is loud and clear. This is Shedeur Sanders' team now, whether the coaching staff likes it or not. Let's start with what's already sending shockwaves through the locker room. Kevin Stefanski didn't want this. The coaching staff pushed back. They weren't ready to hand the keys to an unproven rookie in the middle of a playoff hunt, especially when the locker room had rallied behind Flacco's leadership. But Jimmy Haslam had other plans. Ownership overruled the coaching staff, demanded Sanders be elevated, and forced the organization to fall in line. This isn't just about talent evaluation. This is about control. When a head coach can't choose his own quarterback, that's not a football team, it's a franchise in crisis. The trade of Flacco signals the collapse of coaching authority in Cleveland. Stefanski resisted. He lost. And now the power structure is upside down, with the owner calling shots on personnel decisions while the coaching staff scrambles to maintain any semblance of direction. The locker room isn't blind to it. Flacco was a stabilizing presence, a Super Bowl MVP, a proven leader, and someone the veterans trusted. His sudden departure didn't just change the depth chart. It sent a message that tenure, chemistry, and performance come second to marketability and owner preference. That's a hard pill to swallow for players fighting for wins and jobs. And it gets worse. Flacco didn't just leave the building. He landed in Cincinnati. A division rival. A playoff contender. A team that now holds insider knowledge of Cleveland's offensive system. Protections, play calls, audibles. Flacco knows them all. The Bengals didn't just get a backup QB, they got a weapon. And the Browns handed him over without a fight. What exactly did Cleveland get in return? A late-round pick? Some vague future considerations? Whatever it was, it doesn't balance the scale. Cincinnati walked away with intel, depth, and a quarterback who could sabotage his former team from the inside. Cleveland, meanwhile, handed over their veteran leader and threw a rookie into the fire. And that rookie? Shedeur Sanders is walking into this storm with more pressure than any young quarterback should ever face. He's not just expected to perform, he's expected to justify an organizational shakeup that fractured the entire power structure. He's not just the new starter, he's the chosen one, elevated by ownership decree, given the spotlight before he earned the locker room. Yes, he's got talent. Yes, he's got the pedigree. But none of that guarantees success in the NFL. And now, every mistake he makes, every misread, every interception, it's not just a growing pain. It's an indictment of the decision that put him here. The media knows it. The fans feel it. Cleveland's diehards are split between excitement for the new era and outrage over the way it started. The debate is everywhere. Sports talk shows, Reddit threads, post-game parking lot rants. Did the Browns just make a bold move for the future, or did they implode their season midstream? Because here's the reality. This isn't a team trending upward. This is a team spiraling sideways. And while the rest of the AFC North stays focused on winning, Cleveland is publicly unraveling under the weight of its own drama. Even before the trade, the tension was there. Weeks of internal conflict built up to this moment. Ownership and coaching weren't on the same page. The plan wasn't clear. And now that the dust has settled, we know why, because the coaching staff never had the final say. That's not just a Cleveland problem. It's becoming a league-wide pattern. Owners are stepping in, media narratives are dictating personnel choices, and the old-school football hierarchy is breaking down. In this case, Shedeur Sanders didn't just win the job. He became the symbol of a franchise's internal power shift. So what happens now? Cleveland enters the back half of the season with a rookie quarterback at the helm, a divided coaching staff, and a locker room trying to make sense of it all. The playoff window isn't closed, but it's getting harder to see through the fog. And every game Sanders plays is now under a microscope. If he shines, the chaos might feel worth it. If he struggles, the fallout will be brutal. Because let's be honest, there's no plan B. Flacco's gone. The coaching staff lost their leverage. And ownership is all in on Sanders, regardless of how the rest of the organization feels. That kind of gamble only works if the results come fast. Otherwise, the damage keeps spreading. You can't build cohesion in a fractured hierarchy. You can't preach accountability when decisions are made from above. And you can't chase a playoff spot while your rivals collect your playbook from the quarterback you just tossed aside. That's what makes this more than just a quarterback swap. It's a franchise-defining moment. It's the point where Cleveland chose spectacle over structure, hype over hierarchy. And now they're stuck navigating the fallout with the entire league watching. The Bengals are watching. The Ravens are watching. The Steelers are watching. Every AFC North team just got an edge. Not just because of Flacco's intel, but because Cleveland's internal fractures are now public. Distraction, dysfunction, instability, those are hard to hide in a playoff push. And for Sanders, the stakes couldn't be higher. He's not just playing football. He's defending a decision that alienated a locker room, overruled a coaching staff, and put an owner's ego on full display. That's a brutal weight for any rookie. But it's the reality of modern NFL politics, where name recognition sometimes matters more than scheme fit, and where media heat can cook a roster faster than a busted coverage. Cleveland is officially on the clock, not just in the standings but in the court of public perception. The next few weeks will decide everything: Sanders' future, Stefanski's job security, and the Browns' credibility as a franchise. If it works, they'll look bold. If it doesn't, they'll look broken. And right now, it's hard to ignore the cracks. From ownership interference to strategic blunders, Cleveland didn't just trade a quarterback. They detonated their own depth chart and handed their rivals the blueprint. That's not forward thinking. That's flammable. So here we are. Shedeur Sanders takes the field, Flacco suits up for Cincinnati, and the Browns try to convince the world that this is all part of the plan. But everyone knows better. Because the truth is, Cleveland didn't just lose a quarterback, they lost the plot. If you're as confused, entertained, or stressed out by the situation as we are, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Is this the start of a new era or just another Cleveland catastrophe in the making? Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay strapped in for the ride, because this drama is far from over. The biggest irony in all of this? The Browns were supposed to be building something. This season wasn't meant to be another rebuild or experiment. It was supposed to be the culmination of years of planning, drafts, painful losses, and strategic hires. Stability was finally within reach. And then, boom. A top-down decision rips the floor out from under the entire operation. You don't trade away your veteran quarterback mid-season to a divisional rival unless something behind the scenes is on fire. And based on how fast this happened, it wasn't a football fire, it was political. It was personal. It was an ownership-driven pivot that disregarded timing, chemistry, and logic, all to force one outcome: the coronation of Shedeur Sanders. Let's be very clear, this is not an anti-Shedeur story. The kid's got confidence, arm strength, and the kind of media savvy that most rookies could only dream of. He knows how to own a press conference. He knows how to trend. But that isn't the problem. The problem is how he got here, and how much collateral damage came with it. Because no matter how good Sanders might be, he's now stuck carrying the baggage of a messy front office coup. His teammates didn't get to compete for the role. The coaching staff didn't get to decide when or how to introduce him. He's not walking into this like a normal rookie QB. He's walking into it like a symbol of ownership's will. And that changes everything. How do you lead a locker room that didn't choose you? How do you earn trust when your elevation came at the cost of someone the players respected? These aren't questions about skill, They're questions about leadership, timing, and the politics of sport. And right now, they're being asked in every corner of the Browns facility. You've got veterans looking around wondering if they're next. You've got a coaching staff operating under the shadow of lost authority. And you've got a rookie quarterback, who might be incredibly talented, thrown into a spotlight that's way too bright, way too soon for all the wrong reasons. And then there's Cincinnati. This is where the Browns' decision goes from questionable to reckless. Letting Flacco walk is one thing. Sending him into the waiting arms of a division rival? That's sabotage, intentional or not. The Bengals didn't even have to beg. They just held the door open and Cleveland practically wheeled him in. Think about the value Flacco brings to Cincinnati right now. He knows Cleveland's entire playbook. He knows the checks, the audibles, the red zone looks. He knows Stefanski's tendencies, his calls under pressure, even the locker room dynamics. The Bengals just got a full scouting report delivered to their doorstep, and they didn't even have to disguise it. It's like handing your rival the answer key the night before the test. And all of that for what? A draft pick that might never see the field? A PR bump from installing a high-profile rookie? The math doesn't work. Not if you care about wins. Not if you care about locker room stability. And definitely not if you care about keeping your coaching staff intact. Because yes, Kevin Stefanski is officially on thin ice. The moment the owner starts overriding your quarterback decisions, your days are numbered. It doesn't matter if he keeps showing up at pressers with calm talking points and positive spin. The trust is broken. And once the head coach loses that autonomy, the rest of the staff starts reading the writing on the wall. They didn't get to choose Sanders. They didn't get to keep Flacco. They're coaching a team that's no longer theirs. And if things go south and with this kind of turmoil, they very well could. Guess who takes the fall? Not ownership. And the players feel that too. For all the excitement around a rookie QB, the underlying tension hasn't gone away. Morale isn't just about momentum, it's about belief. When players believe the organization has a plan, they buy in. But when the message becomes play well or we'll replace you for someone flashier, that belief starts to erode. This is where the Browns find themselves. At a dangerous inflection point, one where short-term hype threatens long-term health. And while fans are debating X's and O's, the real story is what this trade represents. It's not just a changing of the guard. It's a fundamental shift in who holds the power. And that shift comes at a cost. Coaches lose control. Veteran players lose influence. And young stars like Sanders get thrust into a vortex of expectations they never asked for. That's not a setup for success. That's a recipe for burnout. But what's even more unsettling is how normalized this is becoming across the league. The Browns are just the latest example of an owner stepping in and reshaping the team around a marketable face. And while that might sell jerseys, it rarely builds championships. The media's role in this can't be ignored either. The pressure is relentless. Highlight reels, social metrics, player rankings, it's all part of the machinery that pushes teams to make these kinds of dramatic shifts before they're ready. And when ownership starts chasing headlines instead of consistency, teams like Cleveland get caught in the middle. And now, everything hinges on one player. One performance. One rookie quarterback carrying the weight of an entire franchise's fractured identity. If Sanders wins, ownership gets to flex. See? We were right all along. But if he loses, it doesn't just sink a season. It exposes a system. It shows the consequences of dismantling your own foundation for the sake of optics. It shows what happens when decision-making gets hijacked by ego, influence, and impatience. And it sends a chilling message to the rest of the league. Development takes a backseat when drama takes the wheel. So where does that leave Cleveland now? They've got a quarterback with star power but no NFL resume. A coaching staff that's publicly been overruled. A fan base that's equal parts excited and exhausted. And a rival in Cincinnati who just gained a blueprint on how to beat them. The Browns didn't just trade Joe Flacco. They traded stability for spectacle. They traded trust for trendiness. And unless this works immediately, they risk becoming the cautionary tale that every other franchise points to when trying to explain what not to do. And let's be honest, Cleveland has lived through enough cautionary tales already. At the end of the day, this isn't just about Shedeur, Sanders, Joe Flacco, or Jimmy Haslam. It's about what kind of franchise the Browns want to be. Do they want to be the team that builds slowly, listens to its football minds, and puts culture before clicks? Or do they want to be the team that flips the switch every time the headlines start drying up? Because the difference isn't just about wins and losses. It's about legacy. And right now, the Browns are rewriting theirs in real time, pen in one hand, gasoline in the other. What's unfolding in Cleveland isn't just a quarterback controversy, It's a textbook case of what happens when ambition, ego, and dysfunction collide in public. The decision to trade Joe Flacco didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened after weeks of tension boiling inside the building. You had a coaching staff trying to win games. You had veterans rallying around the one guy in the locker room who had been through it all before. And you had an ownership group that couldn't wait to hit fast forward and launch their next big thing. The pressure cooker finally blew its lid. Not because Flacco played poorly, he didn't. Not because Shedeur Sanders demanded the job, he didn't have to. It was ownership that couldn't wait. Jimmy Haslam saw a shiny new storyline, and instead of letting the football people do their jobs, he pulled the plug on whatever cohesion the team had left. And just like that, the Browns became a case study in how to completely derail your own momentum. Let's talk about that coaching staff. Kevin Stefanski isn't some rookie head coach. He's been around long enough to know how quickly things can spiral when leadership starts undercutting itself. He tried to keep control. He tried to make decisions based on football, not politics. But once ownership took the wheel, he was left with one option: fall in line or fall out of favor. And now he's coaching a team that no longer feels like his. That's not speculation. That's reality when your quarterback gets traded out from under you and the next one gets installed like a CEO's nephew joining the family business. The fracture is obvious. You've got Shedeur Sanders being celebrated before he's even thrown a pass. You've got a roster that spent the season grinding behind Flacco, only to see him shipped out overnight. And you've got a head coach forced to pretend that everything's fine while knowing the rug's been pulled from beneath him. Cleveland isn't just dealing with an identity crisis. It's unraveling in real time, while the rest of the division sharpens their knives. Because this isn't a vacuum. This is the AFC North. It's unforgiving. It's brutal. Every week is a fist fight. And while Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati are out there stacking wins and making playoff pushes, the Browns are busy staging an internal power shift and handing over strategic secrets to the enemy. There's no way to sugarcoat this. Cincinnati won that trade. They didn't just add depth. They added knowledge. They added experience. They added exactly what you don't want your rival to have when you're trying to claw your way into the postseason. So now, while the Bengals prep for a playoff push with Flacco in their meeting rooms, the Browns are gambling everything on a rookie who hasn't taken an NFL snap in live combat. The margin for error? Gone. The learning curve? Gone. Shedeur Sanders doesn't get time to adjust. He gets judged from the jump. And let's be real, no one in the league is going to go easy on him. Not when they smell blood in the water. Not when they know the Browns are playing musical chairs with their leadership structure. Defensive coordinators are already circling this like sharks. They're going to blitz, confuse, and pressure until either Sanders crumbles or proves he's worth all this chaos. That's the cost of forcing a narrative before it's ready. And as for Sanders? He's walking a tightrope. One wrong step, one ugly stat line, one bad press conference. And it's not just a critique of his play. It's a referendum on the entire franchise. Was it worth it? That's the question. Was the trade worth destabilizing the locker room? Was it worth stripping power from your coach? Was it worth gifting your rival a strategic advantage? Because if the answer isn't a firm yes, if Sanders doesn't play like a breakout star immediately, then the whole thing starts to look like a power play gone terribly wrong. You can already feel the clock ticking. One bad loss and the media pressure will explode. One sideline outburst and the fractured locker room headlines will write themselves. This is what happens when you manufacture a storyline instead of letting it unfold. And meanwhile the fans, oh the fans. Cleveland's fan base is one of the most passionate, loyal, and long-suffering in football. They've ridden out every rebuild, every meltdown, every heartbreak. And now they're watching their team light another fuse, just when it finally seemed like they'd built something steady. They're torn. Some are fired up about Shedeur's potential, no question. There's always excitement around new blood. But even the most optimistic fans are looking at this and asking, why now? Why burn everything down mid-season? Why disrupt chemistry that was finally clicking? Why take a veteran who steadied the ship and send him to your most hated rival? Those aren't small questions. They're existential ones for a franchise that's been teetering on the edge of credibility for years. Because if this doesn't work, if the Browns miss the playoffs or stumble down the stretch, it won't just be a lost season. It'll be a sign that the franchise still hasn't learned from its own history. It'll be the same old Browns. The team that can't get out of its own way. The team that trades logic for headlines, strategy for spectacle. The team that takes a good thing and finds a way to torch it. And that perception, that legacy, is hard to shake. It lingers in free agency decisions. It clouds draft strategies. It scares off the kind of staff and players who crave structure over spotlight. This trade didn't just shift the quarterback depth chart. It signaled to the rest of the league, the locker room, and the fan base that the internal hierarchy is broken. And that dysfunction isn't something you can fix with one breakout game or one feel-good interview. It takes time. It takes trust. And right now, Cleveland doesn't have much of either. So what's next? That's the million-dollar question. Because if Shedeur Sanders does light it up, if he delivers wins, earns the respect of his teammates, and shows he belongs, then maybe this gamble pays off. Maybe the Browns can stitch together a narrative of bold vision and long-term thinking. But if he doesn't? If the team fractures further, if the losses pile up, if the fans turn impatient? Then this trade becomes more than just a headline. It becomes a symbol of everything Cleveland's been trying to escape: chaos, mismanagement, and the constant reset button. There's still time to right the ship. Still time for Sanders to settle in, for Stefanski to reclaim some control, for the team to rally and grind their way back into contention. But time moves fast in the NFL. And when the spotlight gets this hot, even one misstep can melt everything down. So we'll be watching. The fans, the media, the rivals, they'll all be watching every snap, every press conference, every whisper from inside the locker room. Because no matter how this plays out, one thing is guaranteed: the Browns made a choice that changed everything. And now they have to live with it. If you're still following this saga, and who isn't at this point, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Browns just made the move of the year, or their latest front office disaster? And don't forget to hit subscribe, because however this ends, you're going to want a front row seat for every twist. Trust us, this story is far from over.